In order to demonstrate burp proxy, let's pick the Wacko Pico application which has ID number 4. So just type WAED start number 4. It should take a few seconds to start the application. So once it's started, you should be able to browse to the link locally on that machine. So if you want to access this application on a remote machine, find the IP address of this machine, which is 192.168.50.155, and so if you punch in the IP and port, you should be able to access the application. So now let's configure the browser to point to the proxy, which is running in port 8080. So just go to network settings, manual proxy configurations, and make sure the IP and port are set appropriately, and click OK. And now let's launch Burp Suite, which is in our desktop, which we downloaded earlier. So click on the Proxy tab, and there are various other tabs under Proxy: Intercept, HTTP history, WebSocket history, and options. There are various options, as you can see there. So we will go to HTTP history, where we will be spending a majority of our time. So let's go to the browser and refresh this link, and let's see if Burp captures this request in its logs. So if you go back to Burp, you can see that the request has been captured, and you can see a request and a response tab, and you should be able to render that page as if you're seeing on a browser. So it may take a second to load that on the app, and this is just a raw view with HTML code. So you can see the images. Let's again go back to the proxy, and that is that particular transactions. If you scroll to the right, you should also be able to see the pictures in there. So that is the GET request. You can see the host, the user agent, and the cookie that is passed from the browser to the web server, and that's the response from the web server to the client. And it says cache control is set to no store, which means it doesn't store anything locally. Don't worry too much about these headers. We will deal with this separately in a different course. Just try to focus more on the burp features. So let's type in something in the search bar and click search. If you go to burp, you can see the transaction is there, and you can see all the parameters that you can access using the proxy. Let's type in a cross-site scripting, a payload. This application is vulnerable, and it is not sanitizing any user input. So this particular payload, or whatever we are typing in that search box, should have a pop-up box, as you see on the screen right now. And that particular request is also captured in burp proxy. You can see the payload. If you go to response, you should be able to search for script. And the main issue here is the web application is not sanitizing, and it is reflecting on the user browser, and that's why you see the pop-up on the browser. So let's look at the intercept tab and turn on the interception, which means anything that goes from the browser will be intercepted by burp and we should be able to modify the request packets. So let's type 123 and click search, and you can see the request is waiting for a response. So at this point we can change all the parameters to anything you want. In this case I'll be using the same payload we used earlier, and then we can click on the tab forward to send it to the web application which is running on the server. So if you look at the browser now, you should see the same pop-up as before. So let's again go back to the HTTP history and let's look at the request. So you can see there's an original request and there is also an edited request, and you can look at the response. So as you can see, the proxy is a very useful tool to see what is really going on under the covers. You can look at all the parameters. You can manipulate any parameters to whatever you want and see how the application is behaving. And you can also have different options set. You can intercept the request, intercept the responses. And yeah, don't worry too much about these settings. We will be looking at some important ones later in this course. This is pretty much what I wanted to show. In the next module, we'll look at the repeater tab within Burp Suite.